but there has been a commit. Glenville High School out of Cleveland has obviously been a good history with Ohio State football, and Cincere Johnson is a top 100 player according to 247 Sports. The linebacker at 6'3", 240. So, Steve, do you want to start us out there with Cincere Johnson?
Obviously, Cleveland Glenville, pipeline school for Ohio State over the last 25 years, and it's starting to open up again. The Buckeyes will be starting a linebacker, Arvell Reese, from there this coming season. And, you look at it, it kind of dipped down a little bit. The last 5 or 10 years wasn't quite as profitable for Ohio State, but now the Buckeyes are back in business with Glenville High School, and a very promising prospect, Cincere Johnson. He was at Ohio State's camp a week or two ago, working directly with the linebackers coach James Laurinaitis, national top 100 player. I think there is some sentiment, does he stay at linebacker? He was adamant on Twitter that he is a linebacker, and we'll see how long that lasts, because if he puts some weight on that 6'3" frame, he could easily drop down and play defensive end. I'm open to whatever he does, just as long as he is a contributor to the Ohio State defense is all that matters. I'm sure that's all Matt Patricia, James Laurinaitis, and the group are thinking about with Cincere Johnson, but just a very bright kid. And I just think the sky's the limit, I think, for Cincere Johnson and what he's going to be able to do at the college level. I'm interested, these guys there at the camp as well and watched him perform, and interested to hear more about what they think as well.
Kevin.
Yeah. Steve kind of hit the nail on the head talking about Arvell Reese. There's a lot of Arvell Reese in Cincere Johnson. I hate doing comps, and I'm not going to come back after taking a year off from the show or whatever it is and start, day one by talking about comparisons. But I think it's a fair comparison. To Steve's other point about him, already kind of being a biscuit short of dropping down to the line. I mean, yeah, you could sit there and say, well, CJ Hicks was a linebacker, and now he's finally sliding down to edge position. Do they see something? Well, we've not seen a minute of Cincere Johnson in a collegiate situation. I think he could play at 240. I mean, it's just a matter of how his body reacts to the strength and conditioning program. But I think Arvell Reese really kind of opened the door for what this type of player is. I mean, remember, with Ohio State playing a 4-2-5, you're having 33% less linebackers out there on the field. So, you need to be able to do a lot of things within the system. We've not seen necessarily what Matt Patricia's massage of the defense is going to be coming off of the Jim Knowles defense. But, I think this is a big get, and we always like, oh, such and such is better when so-and-so is good. I think that Ohio State recruiting is better when Cleveland Glenville has prospects, and Cleveland Glenville does have prospects now, and I think Cincere Johnson is, a really strong one. And, this was just a big get, and I had to laugh whenever anybody's like, could Cincere Johnson get away? I'm like, not in this lifetime, at least not in Ted Ginn Sr.'s lifetime. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, well, in terms of like where will he play, let's not forget, I think the first week that Arvell Reese was on practicing, he was almost immediately moved to defensive end, and there was a basically numbers were an issue. There may have been another injury, so they had to move him because they didn't need him at linebacker right away. So he played defensive end as a freshman, but never really played. He didn't see any time on defense. He played only special teams, so he could get moved at some point. But we also, as Kevin said, we don't know what Matt Patricia's defense is going to be. It could end up being like a 3-3-5 where he's a rush linebacker, but he's very athletic. He covers a lot of ground. As somebody else said, he hits hard, and he is 6'3", and you say 240 or whatever. They'll play their linebackers at 235, and pretty much that's where they like them. So he can get wherever he needs to be. And right now, I think Arvell Reese is listed at 6'4", 238, and he's a big linebacker. Cincere Johnson is just a little bit smaller than Arvell Reese, so he is also a big linebacker, but a good get. and we'll know more once they get him on campus and what this defense looks like, because there will be some changes.
Once again, that's Cincere Johnson, linebacker out of Glenville at currently 6'3", 240 is the listing there. And we're talking a top 80 recruit nationally, regardless of position, top 10 at his position. Kevin, anything on the forecast in regards to who might be next off the board or who the big targets are that would really put a topping on this class?
Well, who would put a big topping on this class? There are a lot of kids who are deciding in the next 3 weeks, and I think even by the end of this weekend, we'll have an idea of where the class is. And there are just too many names, and I can't remember all of them to go through everybody who is making a decision. Aaron Thomas, the 6'7", 300-pound offensive tackle out of Phoenix, Arizona, is supposed to announce tonight. That one's kind of been going back and forth. He took an official to Ohio State. Everything sounded super positive. And then he took a visit to Texas A&M, and some of those prediction thingamajiggers started to come in for A&M, and people started to freak out and jumped off the ship. But it seems like the ship has kind of righted itself now. I believe that's going to be at like 9 Eastern. He lives in Arizona, the one state that doesn't follow daylight savings. I think now they're on Pacific, so I think it's going to be like 9 Eastern for us to get that. But another name I'd keep an eye on as well is quarterback Luke Fahey out of Mission Viejo, California. He's a 3-star quarterback who really is down to Ohio State, Stanford. Indiana was right there in the mix, but Indiana just picked up a commitment. I think that one could really kind of happen at any point. I don't know if he necessarily has a plan as to pick, but he did come out and delivered a quote of it would be really hard to say no to Ohio State. Well, we've heard that quote before and seen kids subsequently say no to Ohio State, but I don't think that's going to be the case there. But those are a couple of the next kids. But, when it comes to Ohio State, I think defensive line recruiting is very important. Offensive line recruiting, I mean, obviously there's going to be Fort Wayne receiver is supposed to make an announcement, I think, either Friday or over the weekend. That would be a 5th receiver. Once again, Brian Hartline doing Brian Hartline things. But, I think that everybody has kind of gotten off on a little bit of a misnomer thinking that with going up to 105 scholarships or whatever, that Ohio State was going to fund 105 scholarships, and that's not going to be the case. I don't even know if Ohio State's going to go to 25 players in this class. So, just, for every kid that doesn't pick Ohio State, and this isn't me trying to correct history or anything, but for every kid that doesn't pick Ohio State, don't look at it as like, oh no, the sky is falling. I thought we were national champions. What the hell? You just got to fit the pieces in right.